Hey y'all, hope everyone's enjoying their weekend so far. It's Sunday, May 3rd. As promised, I want to put out my weekly update recap on just kind of what I'm looking at for the week ahead and just the state of the market and some of the tickers that are going to be on watch and sectors I'm going to be watching this week. So to start off, obviously last week we had in big tech earnings with Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Google. And between all of them, and I think I mentioned in the last video, it wasn't really about like their earnings or revenue. It was more about like their capex spend, right? I think combined they're looking about 700 million in in increased capex spend. So that tells you, right, that they're going to be spending more and more money to build out AI infrastructure. So those are the names that are really going to be catching a bit, I think, this week. And the three sectors that I'm really looking at are number one, rare earths, right? We're already in Nexa, and we could go through some other names, some of the leaders I want to get in there. Uh, AI and like data center cooling, I think, is flying underneath the radar right now for the most part. And then the third one we know about, like photonics and fiber optics, right? The AXTIs and the AAOIs and the lights. But we'll go through that. But still, mention last week was obviously big tech earnings. Those are the ones that we're going to have a pretty big implication on the indices as a whole with SPY and QQQ. This coming week, it's still jam packed with earnings. A lot of these names are going to be more related to IWM, right? So we have obviously AMD on Tuesday. We have Palantir as well on Monday after the close. And then going into Wednesday and Thursday, we have a lot of data center names: ARM, CoreWeave, I believe, too, Amcor, and Iron, AAOI, Cipher, right? So it's a jam-packed week with earnings and a lot of the high beta names. So these will be interesting to watch. Probably get some big moves out of them. And then as far as the macro this week, pretty light week. All we have really is the jolts on Tuesday and initial jobless claims on Thursday, and then some the non-farm payrolls on Friday as well. So light week, nothing like last week. Jumping into the charts here. So pull up SPY, right? So obviously a pretty nasty close on Friday, all things considered, right? Kind of a shooting star here with the big wick. So that's why I look to enter those puts. What I'm looking for from SPY, and like I said, I'm not looking for like a massive 3% drawdown or anything like that. What I'm looking for to kind of start the week is a little pullback here, and then we consolidate and probably build out a flag for the next leg up. So that's what we're looking to see. That's why I got the 720 puts, because if we go down to like a 715, or I think realistically, what happens is like we come down to like a 710 at some point, and then build out a flag here, tighten up before continuing higher. So that's what I'm looking for with SPY specifically. Obviously, the bank sold off a little bit on Friday, so that's why SPY was a little weaker. The Q's pretty strong as usual. Obviously, it's interesting to see the decoupling between the Qs and indices and Nvidia, which sold off pretty nasty, right? So Qs look strong. IWM, as mentioned, a lot of those names are going to be reporting this week. So IWM looks poised for the next leg higher. Oops. If we could break this high here, push further out to all-time highs. So when it comes to the mags, Tesla, obviously Tesla got that big push on Friday, and if you were in those 0 days, you did well. I obviously got shook out of them, but it did come up. It did reject against the 21 week, and now we're sitting at like the 390 level. What I'll be looking for from Tesla this week, before like kind of jumping into sizable long, is kind of a pullback and retest of this 380, 381 area before going higher to the next leg. I think, right here it was the initial pop, right? It'll shake out some more people, give a retest, and then go higher. Nvidia, be looking. So said Nvidia, like this is potentially, on a weekly, a double top look. If we go here, right? If you see like where with these weekly candles, and then it also looks kind of like a UTAD, right? If we're looking at distribution, but Nvidia does look weak, right, relative to the rest of the market, which is kind of surprising at this point. I think nobody would think that if the market keeps grinding up, that Nvidia is going to be selling off like this. So I think it is shaking out a lot of people that were screaming, "Oh, Nvidia is going to 250, 260 this month." I think what I'm looking for Nvidia is to lose like this week, to lose the 21 day, probably like 196 around here, lose the 196 level, come down to the 50 day, to the 190s, or maybe even potentially lower to like the 180s before taking the next leg up, right? And then kind of ripping through the summer. So something like this. And then obviously they have earnings coming up in about on May 20th. So maybe that earnings pop is what kind of gives us the real UTAD look here on Nvidia before potentially selling off, or that doesn't necessarily have to happen. It could rip up to, obviously there's going to be ups and downs, but rip up to like the 250 point from there. So again, Nvidia early in the week, I'm looking, a break of that 197, 196 area. I'll be looking to go short. Again, not saying that the market's going to crash or a big correction, but I think that we're going to come out and kind of sweep out some of this liquidity down here in Nvidia. Microsoft, I think software is obviously catching a bid with some of the earnings that came in last week. Team and Twilio had good earnings. Microsoft, kind of sold off on their earnings. Still looks pretty weak to me. You want to hold this 400 level. That's a key psychological number. Meta, not much to say about Meta. It's kind of just it's a sloppy chart, right? So I wouldn't even touch it. If anything, if we get up to like the 630 area, look to short it. Amazon, oh, this is still up here. So obviously we hit Amazon on Friday. If you tailed that using the Jack summaries, and I'll probably delete this in a second. But from Amazon, what I look for is kind of building out a flag here above the 8-day and consolidate. Apple with a pretty nasty close, in my opinion, on Friday. Like we zoom in, it popped up to the highs at open and just kind of just sold off and drifted down, right? So I'd actually look for Apple to pull in a bit, probably into the 8-day here, like 272, and maybe consolidate here. Like this is a key area. If you remember, like it kept rejecting this 272, 273 area. So what I'd be looking for is, I'll be looking for Apple to consolidate here, turn this former resistance into support, and then kind of flag out like everything else that I mentioned. So come in here, build a flag, and then go. Google, no comment for obvious reasons, but obviously Google looks really strong. Probably just continue up here and flag out. The fact that it didn't sell off after earnings is very telling and very strong. So in my weekly kind of watch list as well, I put some of the names that have earnings here just so I could pay attention to them. Obviously, we know AMD has earnings on Tuesday. This looks strong. Probably push towards 400. I think by the end of the week. The one that I am watching very closely is Palantir. If you remember, we back here in February, we caught a great short here. We kind of declining here below the EMAs, big markdown, popped up on earnings into the EMAs, and we were able to catch a big short. I think we get something similar here. I'm obviously not going to take it blind, but what I'd be looking for is, for it to, Palantir always blows out their numbers. They always do every year, every quarter. It's not a question about their numbers, but obviously their PE ratio is pretty high. So if we go and pull up the 200 day. So Palantir, I think one of two scenarios. There's a support resistance area around here, like 152. That was kind of like a big level. If you scroll back a bit, right, it was just kind of chopped up here. So either it will pop up into the 152 and look for a rejection, or if it gets a big squeeze, maybe like a 20-point squeeze up to the 200 SMA, up to here, and then I would look to short it here, right, into the 200, back down. Probably like 150 puts for May 15th on Palantir. Some other names I'm looking at, top watch for me this week. Let me pull up the charts here. AMPX looks really strong. This what I'm looking for here is a pullback to the 21 day. If we could catch it here at 1950, or if we break over the 2150 area with volume, I'll be looking to take this long. LWLG, pretty strong chart as well. Obviously, high volume coming in here early March. Volume still. The buyers are stepping in here, right? All the big days are buy days. There's no big selling days. This one is it's extended quite a bit. So if we could get a pullback down to a minimum the 14 level, that would make me feel good about going long. Or if we could break through the 1650, 17 area. So if we zoom out a bit on the weekly here, we could see that all-time highs are up here around 20. So probably look for, like, just looking at some of these levels, zooming out. Yeah, that 14, the 14, 1350 area would be a good area for risk reward to go long. Another name that I found this weekend, I said, like, found a lot of names that just aren't on Twitter, which is good, right? You kind of want to be ahead of the crowd. Next, NEXT, obviously big volume here towards the end of March, kind of consolidating here. EMAs are catching up. It's tightening up a bit. It's obviously cheap enough that we could do shares, but what I'll be looking for is kind of a pullback into the 750 area or a break over $8. Look for this to go higher, up to like the 875, 950, and 1050 areas. You can see it still has room up to the highs here, up to around $12. HPE, Hewlett Packard Enterprises. So, well, obviously with the data centers, there's the build out, there's the infrastructure, the networking involved, right, as well as the memory and storage that we talk about. So HPE plays a role in both the networking and the storage. They acquired Juniper Networks about a year ago, and this is it's been tightening up here. I think it's going to be ready here soon. They do have earnings early June, so that could be the big catalyst. But with HPE, what I'll be looking for is a pullback back to 2750 or the 8 day. Ideally, if we could get a test of the trend spine here, or if we're able to break over 2920, right around here. Actually, I'll do that now. UUU, going back to the rare earths. So we are in Nexa, looking at a couple of the rare earths. UUU, these names have a tendency to shake people out, right? So people got long here, it ran up, and then automatically sold off, right? Same thing. These are setting up for the next leg up, but you have to be careful to kind of take your profits when you can. Let's see. I mean, we target up to 29 here at minimum. So with UUU, I'll be looking for a pullback to $20, which is right around like the 50 day. This whole EMA cluster, right? We got all the support here, but if we get a pullback into the cluster, or if it could break over 22, that's what I'll be looking for UUU long. ASX, another one that I don't see a lot of people talking about. And it's obviously flagging out here, compressing, big flag here. Now it's tightening up a bit, setting up for the next leg up. A pullback to 2750, if we get that, would be great. Like down to like anywhere to the 21 day or the 8 week. And then from there, if we were able to break out over 32, like this 32 level has kind of been a key resistance. So zooming out, there's no resistance at this point, right? It's blue skies once it breaks over 32. So this is one I'll probably look to add in with size. Talking about like the leaders in the space. MP is one I'm looking to get into early in the week. Obviously, we're Nexa. Probably look to get into UUU and some of the other rare earth names, but MP, this looks like it's gearing up to head back towards 100 here pretty soon. Especially like if you look at Intel and the U.S. government investing all that money into Intel. The U.S. has invested a lot of money into MP as well, right? So with MP, what I'll be looking for is a pullback to 63 if we're able to get it, like down to like the 8 day. look for UNR, or if we're able to break over 67, kind of like the highs of last week. And be targeting up to 70. So we're targeting 70, 74, and $80. And I think eventually it does get up to 100. So probably be looking at June cons there. And then some other names. FedEx. We missed the break. It broke out last week of that little cup and handle. So now we're getting the retest. So this is where I'd be looking to re-enter here on the retest of the 8-day. And then AMKR had a big sell-off, I think, because of an offering that they did. But this is setting back up for the next leg up. So I'll be looking over, if we could break over this 72 area, this resistance here, be looking to take this long. Ooh. Wolf, another one with relative strength here. Recent IPO. It's retesting the highs here from when IPO'd early, and it is pretty extended here. So I'll be waiting for this to kind of pull back a bit into the 8-day before looking to take this long. FPS. We're talking about grid and infrastructure. This is they tie specifically into the infrastructure and grid, which is going to be a shortage here, especially with all the AI build outs. I think on a lot of the earnings calls this past week, they mentioned that could be a bottleneck, right? Looking at energy and the grid. So recent IPO, but it was able to kind of break through this 3750 level, which is pretty big. And I think this could run. This could be a big winner here over the next 3-4 months. And then another theme, obviously, a lot of people are talking about the peptides, and that getting green lighted right by the FDA. So that's bullish for NVO and as well as HIMS. So I think both these names, HIMS, I cut early on Friday because just didn't have enough cushion and didn't want to risk holding something at such high beta over the weekend with no cushion. So HIMS, they obviously have earnings coming up here on the 11th, so that is next Monday. But this looks to be setting up here for the next leg up as well. NVO looks great. I think we were in cons early in the week. If we would have held them, would have paid here. I think it was like 300% or so. So let me see here. Some names I found through the swing alerts. HAL, which is an oil name. This one is just, I think any dips here on HAL into the 21-day are buyable, right? It's just been trekking along in this channel here, which actually what I want to do. Let's do this. I'm just going to see how this channel looks. Yeah, this looks like it's just going to keep trucking up. So maybe it comes up here to 44 before pulling back to like the 39 level, and this offers a good buying opportunity down here. Oil is pretty elevated still, so anytime we see oil, go up to CL here. I mean, oil's over 100, right? So it's still looking good, it's looking bullish, but market doesn't care, right? So we just kind of you play what's in front of you, and I think oil names are still going to be able to catch a bid. Bitcoin is getting interesting here. If we could get over the 21 week, obviously we saw a big push with MSTR on Friday, but I mean, is this a bounce and correcting, right? Like a U, or is this a big giant bear flag? TBD. We'll find out. I think until we get over this key area of around 80, kind of proceed with caution with Bitcoin, right? Some other names looking at, let's see, CRML. We were in this, got shook out here when it sold off a bit before it kind of popped up. But with all these rare earth names, you got to buy time and be able to grit through it a little bit. So probably look to re-enter here on the break of maybe or the break over 13, or pull back into the 21 day if we get that. Memory chips in general, obviously SanDisk sold off right, and that after earnings, and that offered a great opportunity for people to get long, get in there. MU as well. These are both just going to keep going, in my opinion. Um, there are going to be pricier contracts, so we're trying to find like not everyone could play options on those names. So try to find names that are, you know, adjacent to a lot of the memory names out there that are cheaper and still have room to run. CoreWeave has earnings coming up this week. This looks great for continuation higher. All the data center names, Wolf is still, this is still kind of checking along. They have earnings next week as well. Networking, a lot of stage 2 names. And then name that caught my eye, kind of just scanning the other day, was Ross. Like this is crazy. This is like Ross department stores, which sells lower end clothing, like cheaper brand names and all that. But like from July, let's go. We'll even go from. Let's go from August, right? From August to here, it's up 72%. It's wild. So this is one that obviously in the stage 2 markup, it's still going. So if we could catch any kind, it's not showing any signs of slowing down, right? Any dips into here are getting bought up. There was a big sell day here early March that looks like that was because of earnings. They do have earnings coming up again, so be mindful of that. But yeah, guys, that's what I'm looking at this week. Think again to kind of recap in the markets. I think we see early sell-off, not a massive sell-off, not 3-4%, but I think we see something where Monday, and futures open later today, right? But I think what I'll look for is kind of a pullback, down into 713, and then we kind of consolidate and chop the rest of the week. And I imagine that the market kind of stays in a choppy range until stay in the range until Nvidia earnings on the 20th. So probably build out a flag, and then Nvidia earnings will decide what happens here, up or down. Cool. Well, hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Sunday. Appreciate all the members that are in here. If you're not a member, you could join our free Discord, as well as download our free TradingView indicators that are available. Thanks, y'all. Have a good week.